Picture this: 480 Marines trapped in hostile terrain, ammunition nearly depleted, enemy muzzle flashes lighting up every ridge like deadly fireflies. Command had already begun drafting casualty lists. The handbook said to hold position. The handbook said stand down. But when waiting meant certain death, one overlooked sniper broke protocol. This is the story of a ghost from the past who returned to save 480 American souls abandoned in a cold valley of death. The Helmand sun burned white against the rocky Afghan mountains, casting long shadows across Firebase Echo. Inside the command center, the air hummed with the mechanical precision of military routine. Maps covered walls. Radios crackled. Officers moved with rehearsed efficiency, their faces masks of professional detachment. But far from this operational heartbeat, away from the purposeful activity, one figure sat alone atop a supply crate. Legs crossed, rifle balanced across her lap. Master Sergeant Sarah "Ghost" Morgan. 32 years old, Marine Corps sniper, moved with the deliberation of a timepiece. Every action calculated, steady, unhurried. Her frame was smaller than most, around her barely over 5 feet 4 inches, with narrow shoulders beneath her tan blouse. Where others projected swagger, she radiated control. She ran a cloth through the bore of her M40A5, checked the bolt face, then made precise notations in a small spiral notebook balanced on her knee. The rifle wasn't merely a weapon. It was an extension of her consciousness. Sarah logged each adjustment like scripture. Clicks on the Schmidt and Bender PMII 5 to 25 56 mm scope. Changes in humidity. Wear patterns on the muzzle. Bullet drop compensation at varying distances. The M40A5 boasted a 0.5 MOA accuracy effective range of 1,000 meters with 58 inches of drop at 1,000 yards. These weren't just numbers to Sarah. They were the language of survival, the arithmetic of life and death. Two Marine sergeants strolled past on their way to the armory, their boots kicking up fine dust that caught the afternoon light. "There's our quota sniper," one said loud enough for her to hear. "Paper shooter." "Good thing cardboard doesn't shoot back," the other replied with a smirk. Neither slowed their pace. Neither expected her to respond. Sarah didn't. She polished the bolt and scribbled another line in her notebook. She had heard it all before. Mascot. Checkbox. Too small. Too quiet. Too different. Even seasoned officers dismissed her with casual certainty. "Morgan's good for range scores," Captain Reynolds had told the company commander. "But combat, keep her on comms. Make her useful." And so they did. Support duty, hauling gear, checking communications, running logistics. No one asked her to climb ridges. No one invited her to join the real fights. She was politely told to stay in her lane. What they never realized, because they never bothered to look, was that Sarah Morgan built her own training regimen in the quiet hours when others slept. While Marines traded stories in smoke pits, Sarah spread topographical maps under red light, memorizing terrain features until they lived in her mind. She charted wind patterns, noting shifts at different times of day across various valleys. She drilled trigger discipline with dry fires until her breathing synchronized with her heartbeat. And in her green notebook, the one that looked like a grocery list, she wrote it all down. Ballistic tables, environmental adjustments, calculations, worked by hand in case electronics failed. Each page filled with neat handwriting, rows of numbers, arrows across grids. Her private doctrine, unseen by those convinced she had none. On her forearm, hidden beneath her sleeve, was a small tattoo of the Marine sniper emblem, a scoped rifle framed by laurel leaves. She had earned it through sweat and precision, through a school that punished hesitation and demanded perfection. But here in Helmand, she kept it covered. No need to remind men already certain she didn't belong. That was the paradox of Sarah Morgan. She never flared when mocked. She never argued when dismissed. She didn't throw words back to prove herself. She carried the insults like she carried her rifle, quietly, carefully, with patience. She was waiting not for permission, but for the inevitable moment when all her charts, numbers, and discipline would no longer be invisible. Her story didn't begin in Helmand. It began in Redstone, Arizona, where evenings smelled of dust and mesquite, and the horizon stretched over flat farmland into painted mountains. Her father, William Morgan, had been more than just a Marine who deployed twice before injuries forced him home. He had been CIA operating in Afghanistan during the 1980s, training Mujahideen fighters against Soviet forces in what history now called Operation Cyclone. William raised his daughter with core discipline even when the nearest military base was hundreds of miles away. Chores began at dawn. Fences required fixing before breakfast, and as dusk painted the sky purple, he would line empty soda cans along fence posts and hand her a weathered hunting rifle. "Steady breath," he'd say. "Slow trigger, let the shot surprise you." By age 12, Sarah could drop every can at 50 yards without hesitation. By 16, she outshot most men who came to hunt with her father. William rarely offered praise, but the quiet pride in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. He taught her to read terrain, to predict wind from how grass bent, to calculate distance without rangefinders. "The Soviets thought Afghanistan would be easy," he told her one evening as they cleaned rifles on the porch. "They underestimated what determination can accomplish against superior numbers." What Sarah didn't know then was that her father had trained an elite unit of Afghan marksmen, teaching them advanced sniping techniques that had devastated Soviet patrols. William Morgan had become a legend among certain circles, his methods studied, his successes classified. But legends attract enemies. In 1989, just before the Soviet Union began its collapse, William Morgan disappeared during a mission. The official report stated he died in an ambush. No body was ever recovered. Sarah was 17 when two solemn officers delivered the news. 3 months later, she enlisted in the Marines, partly to honor him, but mostly to understand the world that had taken him. Sarah carried it well enough to earn a sniper billet, an achievement few women reached, and fewer were recognized for. But in Helmand paper, credentials meant little against opinions already cemented in sand and blood. So she brought her rifle to the range and her notebooks back to her bunk, enduring whispers, while others flaunted confidence. The firebase itself operated like a mechanical watch, each component turning in sequence. Patrols deployed, reports arrived. Marines stood in chow lines, briefings repeated familiar assessments. Sarah moved along the edges of it all, noticed, but never valued, seen, but never recognized. Until a Tuesday morning, when a solitary figure entered the compound. Lieutenant Colonel James Old Bear Harlow, 68 years old, walked with the measured gait of a man who had survived enough to respect caution, but not enough to fear consequence. His weathered face mapped decades of classified operations, most from the Cold War era, when Berlin stood divided and intelligence officers played deadly games of chess using human pieces. Harlow hadn't come to Firebase Echo by accident. He arrived as a special advisor, a title that meant everything and nothing in military bureaucracy. Veterans recognized his particular bearing, the way his eyes constantly scanned environments, cataloging threats, exits, assets. Younger Marines just saw an old man with impressive ribbons who spoke little and observed much. Sarah noticed him first at the range. While officers entertained the distinguished visitor with displays of marksmanship, she practiced alone at the far end, working through a precision drill. 20 shots, 20 targets, varying distances. When she finished and checked her results, she found Harlow standing behind her, studying her targets through binoculars. "Grouping at 800 meters is tight," he said without introduction, "but you're compensating too much for right drift." Sarah turned, maintaining her professional composure. "Wind's coming off the mountains, sir." "Not at this hour." And he handed her the binoculars. "Valley creates a countercurrent. Locals call it the ghost wind because you can't see it, only its effects." She adjusted her next shot accordingly. The round struck center mass. Harlow nodded once, then walked away without another word. That evening, as Sarah cleaned her rifle outside the barracks, he appeared again, settling onto a crate across from her. For several minutes he said nothing, just watched her methodical process. "You're William Morgan's daughter," he finally said. Not a question. Sarah's hands paused momentarily, then continued their work. "You knew my father." "We worked together. Berlin, 1985. Then later in Afghanistan." Harlow studied her face. "You have his patience." It was the first time anyone at Firebase Echo had mentioned her father. Sarah kept her expression neutral, but her interest sharpened. "Most people just tell me I have his eyes. Eyes don't make a sniper. Patience does." Harlow reached into his jacket and removed a tarnished silver flask. "Your father saved my life in Kandahar province. Soviet Spetsnaz had us cornered. William made a shot at night 900 meters without night vision. Impossible shot. He taught me there's no such thing as impossible shots, only unprepared shooters." A smile briefly crossed Harlow's face. "That sounds like him." He took a small sip from his flask. "The Corps treating you well?" Sarah considered her answer carefully. "The Corps is the Corps, sir." "Which means no, they're not." Harlow recapped his flask. "Military minds can be remarkably unimaginative. They see a woman your size, they make assumptions. William faced the same problem. Too small, they said. Not enough mass to handle recoil on large calibers. He proved them wrong. As will you when the moment comes." Harlow stood. "Opportunity favors the prepared, Sergeant Morgan. Keep your notebook current." Before Sarah could ask how he knew about her notebook, Harlow walked away, disappearing among the tents and vehicles of the base. That night, as she updated her ballistic tables, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced since her father's death. Recognition, not just of her abilities, but of her heritage. What Sarah didn't know was that James Harlow hadn't come to Firebase Echo by chance. He'd come looking specifically for her, carrying secrets that had remained buried for 16 years. Secrets about her father, about a Russian KGB officer named Nikolai Makarov, and about a betrayal that had never been avenged. The next morning, briefing room activity increased noticeably. Intelligence reports arrived hourly. Officers spoke in lowered voices. Maps of Shakur Valley appeared on planning tables marked with potential insurgent positions. Sarah observed this acceleration from her assigned communications station, where she monitored radio traffic and logged supply movements. During the afternoon briefing, Colonel Richards outlined their upcoming mission with clipped precision. "Intelligence indicates a significant weapons cache in Shakur Valley," he explained, using a laser pointer to indicate a winding depression between steep mountain ridges. 480 Marines with attachments will sweep the area, locate the cache, and deny resources to insurgent forces. Sarah studied the topographical map with practiced eyes, noting the narrow approaches, the elevated positions surrounding the valley floor, the limited extraction routes. The terrain screamed ambush potential. Multiple firing positions with interlocking fields of fire, minimal cover for advancing forces, Restricted air support lanes. Classic kill zone configuration. She raised her hand. Colonel Richards acknowledged her with visible reluctance. Sir, these contour lines indicate severe choke points at both valley entrances, she said, gesturing toward the map. If hostile forces occupy these ridgelines, our units would be caught in a crossfire with limited maneuverability. Consider the possibility this intelligence was planted to draw us into a trap. The room fell silent. Colonel Richards stared at Sarah with thinly veiled irritation. "Thank you for your concern, Sergeant," he said flatly. "Intelligence has vetted this information thoroughly. These weapons are supplying attacks on 3 forward operating bases. We're not passing up this opportunity because of hypothetical tactical concerns. With respect, sir, nothing about these concerns is hypothetical. This valley configuration presents a textbook ambush scenario." Captain Reynolds interrupted. "Sergeant Morgan, track equipment, requisitions not strategy. That's above your pay grade." Chuckles rippled through the room. Sarah recognized the familiar dismissal. She closed her notebook and remained silent as the briefing continued. When the session ended, Marines collected gear, adjusted equipment, and joked about how quickly the sweep would conclude. From the doorway, Sarah observed them with a growing sense of unease. As the Marines dispersed, she noticed Harlow standing in a shadowed corner, his expression thoughtful. Their eyes met briefly. He gave an almost imperceptible nod, then disappeared down the corridor. That evening, Sarah discovered a folded note in her equipment locker. The handwriting was precise military. TOC, 2200 hours. Bring your field book. At exactly 2200, Sarah entered the darkened Tactical Operations Center. The night shift monitored communications at reduced staffing levels. In the map room, illuminated only by a single desk lamp, sat Lieutenant Colonel Harlow, examining intelligence reports. "Close the door, Sergeant," he said without looking up. Sarah complied, then stood at parade rest. Harlow motioned her closer. "Your assessment of Shakur Valley was correct," he said quietly. "But there's more happening than a simple weapons cache." He spread several satellite images across the table. They showed vehicle movements, heat signatures at night, personnel transfers between compounds. Standard intelligence gathering. "These supply routes don't match typical Taliban patterns," Sarah observed, "because they're not Taliban patterns. They're Russian." Harlow placed another image on top, this one showing a man in civilian clothes exiting a compound. The photo quality was poor, the subject partially obscured, but something about his bearing caught Sarah's attention. This was taken 3 days ago near the valley. Facial recognition suggests an 89% match with this individual. He produced another photograph, this one older, faded at the corners. It showed 3 men standing near a Soviet Mi-24 helicopter. 2 wore Afghan clothing. The third wore the uniform of a Soviet officer. The man's face was clearly visible, his expression severe, calculating. "Nikolai Makarov," Harlow explained. Former KGB, later FSB, specialized in Afghan operations during the Soviet War. Officially reported dead in 2001, but intelligence suggests he's been running a weapons smuggling operation supplying Russian arms to insurgent forces. Sarah studied the photograph carefully. "What does this have to do with our mission?" Harlow's expression darkened. "Makarov was your father's primary adversary during Operation Cyclone. William disrupted his operations repeatedly. Their conflict became personal." A cold sensation spread through Sarah's chest. "Are you suggesting Makarov was involved in my father's death?" "Not suggesting. Confirming." Harlow's voice dropped lower. "Your father's last mission involved intercepting a weapons transfer orchestrated by Makarov. Intelligence received warning of an ambush, but the warning arrived too late. Or at least, that's the official story. Yara processed this information with practiced composure, though her mind raced. You believe the ambush was coordinated from within our own ranks. I believe your father discovered evidence of a mole within the CIA's Afghan operations. He was close to exposing them when he was conveniently killed in action. Harlow leaned forward. And now, 16 years later, the same distinctive operational patterns are emerging. The weapons cache intelligence came through unusual channels. The mission parameters changed 3 times in 48 hours, and Makarov's presence has been deliberately omitted from all briefings. Sarah's tactical mind immediately grasped the implications. You think tomorrow's mission is a trap specifically designed to eliminate our forces. I think Makarov never forgave your father for the damage he caused. I think he spent years planning this operation, and I think he would consider it poetic justice to destroy an entire Marine unit in the same region where your father supposedly died. Sarah opened her notebook, reviewing her earlier observations of the valley terrain. 480 Marines walking into an ambush with minimal air support options. Casualties could be catastrophic. Unless someone disrupts the trap before it fully closes. Harlow withdrew a small case from beneath the table. He opened it to reveal a pistol, an older model Makarov PM, the standard sidearm of Soviet officers during the Cold War. This belonged to your father. He took it from a Soviet officer in 1987. I've held it for him. Sarah hesitated before lifting the weapon. It felt unnaturally heavy in her hand, weighted with history and unspoken implications. Why are you telling me this now? Harlow's weathered face revealed nothing. Because you're William Morgan's daughter. Because you see what others miss. And because tomorrow, when everything falls apart, someone will need to make an impossible shot. He stood gathering the photographs. Intelligence suggests Makarov himself will oversee this operation. He never appears in the field without at least 2 SVD Dragunov snipers for protection. They'll position on the northern ridge where they can control the entire valley. How can you be certain? Because it's what I would do. It's what your father would do. Harlow moved toward the door. And it's what you would do if you were setting the trap. As he reached for the handle, Sarah asked the question that had been forming since he first approached her. Why didn't you take this information to Colonel Richards? Harlow paused, his back to her. Because 16 years ago, Richards was a junior officer assigned to your father's unit. He was one of 3 people who knew the exact time and location of your father's final mission. The implication hung in the air between them. Sarah felt a cold clarity settling over her thoughts. Get some rest, Sergeant Morgan, Harlow said. Tomorrow will require everything your father taught you. Morning arrived with the hollow clarity of mountain air. The convoy assembled with mechanical precision. Marines checked weapons, secured equipment, and boarded transport vehicles with the practiced efficiency of men who had done this countless times before. Sarah watched from her assigned communications post as the 480 Marines prepared to enter what she now believed was a carefully orchestrated death trap. Colonel Richards conducted final checks with his officers. Sarah observed his movements with new awareness, searching for any indication that he might be complicit in the coming ambush. His behavior revealed nothing suspicious, only the focused determination of a commander preparing for a standard operation. The motors growled to life. Dust spiraled upward as the convoy began its movement toward Shakur Valley. Sarah monitored communications, listening for any irregularities. For a time, the radio crackled with routine updates. Position reports, fuel status, terrain assessments, the monotonous liturgy of military movement. Then, a transmission caught her attention. Firebase Echo, this is actual. Be advised we have visual on multiple heat signatures moving along the northern ridgeline. Request UAV confirmation. Sarah watched as the Tactical Operations Center scrambled to redirect drone assets. On the main display, the convoy's position blinked steadily, moving deeper into the valley. Major Anderson, the operations officer, leaned toward the communications specialist. Tell them to maintain course. Drone assets are 20 minutes out. Sarah felt tension building between her shoulder blades. 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, the convoy would reach the narrowest section of the valley where the ridgelines closed like a vise. She keyed her microphone. Actual firebase. Recommend holding position until aerial confirmation of ridge activity. Terrain ahead restricts maneuver options. Major Anderson shot her a warning glance. Sergeant Morgan, maintain proper communications protocol. Sir, those heat signatures match the profile of heavy weapons teams establishing overlapping fields of fire. The convoy is heading into— That's enough, Sergeant, Anderson snapped. Return to your station. Sarah complied outwardly, but her mind raced through scenarios. If the convoy continued, they would enter the kill zone within minutes. If Harlow's intelligence was correct, Makarov had planned this ambush meticulously. The Marines would be caught in interlocking fields of fire with limited cover and constrained movement options. Suddenly, the radio erupted with urgent voices. Contact, contact. Taking fire from the North Ridge. Multiple positions, heavy weapons, RPG teams on the south slope. The operations center exploded into activity. Display screens showed the convoy's formation compressing as vehicles sought cover. Radio traffic became chaotic. Multiple units reporting contact simultaneously. Major Anderson began issuing standard contingency orders, directing air assets, requesting situation reports. Sarah studied the tactical display. The convoy had entered exactly the position she'd identified as the optimal ambush location. From her assessment, the insurgents held all tactical advantages: high ground prepared positions interlocking fields of fire. The Marines were caught in terrain that offered minimal cover and restricted their ability to maneuver. Firebase, this is actual. Heavy casualties. Request immediate air support on these coordinates. Major Anderson reviewed the coordinates, then shook his head. Negative actual. Those positions are within 200 meters of friendly forces. Cannot authorize airstrike within safety parameters. Sarah watched the display as the convoy's situation deteriorated. More reports of casualties, vehicles disabled, units pinned down by precise sniper fire. The textbook ambush was unfolding exactly as she'd predicted. Sir, she addressed Major Anderson. Those units need immediate support. Without air assets, they require counter-sniper operations to disrupt the enemy's command and control. Anderson barely glanced at her. We follow protocol, Sergeant. Air assets will engage when units create sufficient separation from enemy positions. They cannot create separation while pinned down by sniper fire, Sarah insisted, abandoning protocol. Sir, I can provide that support. Now Anderson turned fully toward her, his expression incredulous. You want to single-handedly counter multiple enemy sniper teams? Stand down, Sergeant. That's an order. Sarah held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded once and returned to her station. The radio continued broadcasting the deteriorating situation. Marine units reported additional casualties, ammunition running low, no possibility of creating the separation needed for air support. Sarah made her decision. She slipped away from the communications center, moving with purpose toward the armory. The Marine on duty recognized her and began the standard sign-out procedure. Sarah requisitioned her M40A5 additional ammunition, her rangefinder, and communication equipment. The paperwork listed her purpose as range qualification. Within 15 minutes, she had assembled her gear and moved toward the motor pool. HMWV sat idling, prepared for a supply run to a nearby checkpoint. The driver, a young corporal, looked surprised as she approached. "Change of plans, Corporal," she said with calm authority. "I need transport to Observation Post Falcon." "Ma'am, I don't have orders for—" "The orders are being processed. This is time-sensitive." She held his gaze steadily until he nodded and opened the passenger door. As Sarah climbed in, she noticed Lieutenant Colonel Harlow standing in the shadows of the supply tent. Their eyes met briefly. He offered a slight nod, then melted back into the darkness. The HMWV departed Firebase Echo Dust, billowing behind it as it accelerated toward the outer perimeter. Sarah checked her equipment methodically, performing functions she had practiced thousands of times. Magazine loads, scope adjustments, range calculations. In her vest pocket, she carried the Makarov pistol Harlow had given her, a physical connection to her father and a reminder of the stakes involved. "Drop me at the Eastern Approach Road," she instructed the driver. "Return to base and report equipment transfer to OP Falcon complete." The corporal looked uncertain but didn't question her. 20 minutes later, he stopped at the designated location. Sarah dismounted with her equipment and watched as the vehicle turned and headed back toward the firebase. Now she stood alone, a single figure against the vast Afghan landscape. In the distance, the sounds of battle echoed between mountain walls. Sarah consulted her map, calculating the fastest route to the ridgeline that would give her optimal firing position above the valley. The climb was brutal. Loose shale slid beneath her boots as she ascended the steep slope. The Afghan sun hammered down, heating her equipment and testing her endurance. Sarah moved methodically, conserving energy, maintaining awareness of her surroundings. Her father's training resonated in her mind. "Terrain will kill you faster than any enemy," he'd told her once. "Respect it, read it, use it." After 40 minutes of climbing, Sarah reached a promising position. A natural depression offered concealment while providing clear sightlines across the valley. Below, she could see the Marine convoy scattered across the valley floor. Disabled vehicles burned, sending columns of black smoke into the clear sky. Marine units had established defensive positions wherever possible, but they remained exposed to fire from elevated positions. Sarah deployed her rifle, setting up her firing platform with practiced efficiency. Through her scope, she conducted a systematic survey of enemy positions. The insurgents had established machine gun nests at strategic locations along both ridgelines. RPG teams moved between prepared positions, striking vehicles, attempting to maneuver. But what caught Sarah's attention were the precise shots targeting Marine officers. Not random fire, but calculated assassination of command elements. Snipers. Professional ones. Sarah adjusted her scope, scanning the northern ridge. There, partially concealed by rock formations, she spotted the signature profile of a sniper position. The precision and discipline evident in their setup confirmed Harlow's intelligence. These weren't typical insurgent fighters. They operated with military precision. Sarah prepared for her first shot. She calculated distance 900 meters, factored wind speed approximately 8 mph from the west, adjusted for temperature and barometric pressure. Her breathing slowed, becoming rhythmic, deliberate. In her mind, she heard her father's voice. "Breathe like the tide. Squeeze the trigger like embracing a lover. Gentle, but firm." Through her scope, she observed the enemy sniper adjusting his position to target a Marine officer directing a defensive formation. Sarah inhaled slowly, then released half her breath. Her heartbeat slowed. The world narrowed to the space between heartbeats. She squeezed the trigger. The suppressed M40A5 whispered death across the valley. Through her scope, Sarah watched the enemy sniper collapse his spotter, looking around in confusion. Before he could locate her position, she had already shifted her aim and eliminated him as well. For a moment, the battlefield rhythm faltered. The precision fire that had been systematically eliminating Marine leaders suddenly ceased. Units began to reorganize, establishing more effective defensive positions. On her radio, Sarah could hear the change in communications tone. Confusion, giving way to coordinated response. "Who's got Overwatch? Someone's picking off tangos on the North Ridge." "Unknown shooter. Repeat, we have unknown support." Sarah didn't respond to the radio chatter. She continued her methodical elimination of strategic targets, machine gun positions, mortar teams, command elements directing the ambush. Each shot calculated each target selected for maximum disruption of the enemy's tactical advantage. As she worked, Sarah became aware of movement on the far ridge. Through her scope, she observed a figure in different clothing from the others moving with authority between positions. The man carried himself with military bearing, directing adjustments to counter her interference. Sarah adjusted her scope for maximum magnification. The man turned his face, becoming visible for a brief moment. She recognized him immediately from Harlow's photographs. Nikolai Makarov, the man who had orchestrated her father's death, the architect of this ambush, the ghost from a Cold War that had never truly ended. Sarah calculated the shot. Range 120 meters beyond the effective range of her rifle, under normal circumstances. Wind had shifted, now coming from the northeast at approximately 12 mph. Temperature dropping as afternoon faded toward evening. The shot probability hovered at the edge of possibility. Her father's words returned to her. "There are no impossible shots. Only unprepared shooters." Sarah made her adjustments, compensating for every variable. She controlled her breathing, finding the space of perfect stillness within herself. As she prepared to take the shot, movement caught her peripheral vision. Through her scope, she detected another sniper previously hidden shifting position on a parallel ridge. This shooter moved differently with a familiar precision that triggered recognition in Sarah's tactical mind. Before she could process this observation, the unknown sniper fired, not at Marine positions, but at Makarov's location. Chaos erupted around the Russian commander. His security detail scrambled for cover. Makarov himself dropped behind a rock formation, clearly wounded, but still mobile. The unknown sniper fired again, missing Makarov, but eliminating one of his protective detail. Sarah shifted her attention to this new shooter. Through her scope, she studied his position, his technique, his equipment. Something about the methodology seemed hauntingly familiar. The shot selection, the timing between shots, the disciplined restraint. It mirrored training she had received from her father. As Marine units began to reorganize under the combined support of her fire and the unknown snipers, Sarah made a decision. She would continue eliminating strategic targets, creating the opportunity for the convoy to establish a defensive perimeter and create the separation needed for air support. But she would also solve the mystery of this ghost from her past, because somewhere on that distant ridge was a shooter who employed techniques only one man had ever developed. Techniques her father had created. Techniques that had died with him. Or so she had been told. Back at Firebase Echo, the Tactical Operations Center had descended into controlled chaos. Radio traffic crackled with reports of casualties' ammunition status and increasingly desperate requests for support. Major Anderson stood at the central display, his face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical screens showing the deteriorating situation in Shakur Valley. "Where the hell is Sergeant Morgan?" he demanded, scanning the communication station where Sarah should have been monitoring radio traffic. A young corporal looked up from his terminal. "Sir, equipment logs show she signed out her sniper kit 40 minutes ago. Listed purpose as range qualification." Anderson's expression darkened. Range qualification in the middle of an operation. Lieutenant Colonel Harlow entered the TOC, his weathered face betraying nothing as he surveyed the tactical display. He moved with unhurried purpose toward Anderson, stopping beside him to study the battlefield imagery. "Your Marines are in a textbook ambush." Harlow observed his voice carrying the graveled texture of decades of command. "Whoever planned this knows American tactical doctrine inside and out." Anderson barely acknowledged him. "We're following protocol. Air support will engage when safe distance parameters are established." "Those men won't establish safe distance while pinned down by precision fire," Harlow replied. His tone remained conversational, but carried an underlying steel that made junior officers straighten instinctively. "Interesting development on the North Ridge, though. Someone's disrupting the enemy's command and control." The tactical display showed sudden confusion in insurgent positions. Precision counter-sniper fire had eliminated key personnel, forcing the ambushers to adapt to unexpected resistance. Anderson squinted at the display. "We don't have assets in that sector." "Don't you?" Harlow's weathered face revealed nothing. Realization dawned slowly across Anderson's features. "Morgan. She disobeyed direct orders." "Seems to run in the family," Harlow commented almost to himself. Anderson turned to face him fully. "What does that mean, Colonel?" Harlow met his gaze evenly. "It means history has an interesting way of repeating itself, Major, especially in places like Afghanistan." Before Anderson could respond, the radio erupted with urgent transmissions. "Firebase Echo, this is actual. We have friendly sniper support from the Eastern Ridge. Multiple enemy positions neutralized. Request immediate identification of supporting element." Anderson grabbed the microphone. "Actual, this is Firebase. No supporting elements deployed. Repeat, no friendlies on Eastern Ridge." Harlow moved closer to the tactical display, studying the changing battlefield dynamics with professional interest. "Your Marines are establishing a defensive perimeter. Whoever's providing overwatch knows exactly which targets to prioritize." Anderson's face flushed with anger. "Morgan has no authorization to engage. She's directly violating orders." "She's saving 480 Marines," Harlow countered calmly. "Perhaps consider that before court-martialing her." The two men locked eyes across the tactical display, decades of military experience clashing in silent confrontation. Around them, the operations center continued its frantic activity, officers calling for updates, communications, specialists relaying information. No one noticed the subtle shift in Anderson's expression as he studied Harlow more carefully. "How did you know it was Morgan?" he asked finally, his voice lowered. "Who else would it be?" Harlow replied simply. Anderson's eyes narrowed. "You put her up to this?" "I merely recognized potential where others saw only limitations." Harlow gestured toward the display. "Your convoy is reorganizing. The ambush is failing. Perhaps you should focus on exploiting that advantage rather than assigning blame." Before Anderson could respond, another officer called out from across the room. "Sir, drone feed shows a vehicle approaching the ambush site from the north. High-speed civilian SUV." The main screen shifted to an aerial view. A black vehicle raced along a dirt track toward the valley, dust billowing behind it like a comet's tail. "Magnify Sector 4, Anderson ordered. The image zoomed in, revealing a Mercedes G-Wagon approaching the battlefield. 4 armed men surrounded a central figure, their protective formation indicating someone of importance. Harlow leaned forward, His interest suddenly intensified. "Well, this is unexpected. Your operation has drawn out someone significant." "Identify," Anderson barked at the intelligence officer. The young lieutenant studied the enhanced imagery. "Facial recognition processing, sir. We have an 89% match with Nikolai Makarov, former KGB officer presumed dead since 2001. The name sent a ripple through the command center. Even junior officers recognized it from intelligence briefings on Russian influence operations in the region. Anderson's reaction, however, was different. For a fraction of a second, something like fear flickered across his features before his professional mask reasserted itself. "Makarov is dead," he stated flatly. "This is a false positive." Harlow watched him with the patient attention of a predator. "Is he interesting that you're so certain, Major, especially since this information wasn't included in any of your briefings?" Anderson turned away, focusing intently on the tactical display. "Lieutenant, alert our forces that a high-value target may be entering the operational area." "And perhaps," Harlow suggested quietly, "you might want to inform Sergeant Morgan as well, since she's currently the only asset in position to interdict." Anderson's jaw tightened visibly, but he nodded to the communications officer. "Attempt contact with Sergeant Morgan. Priority channel." As the officer complied, Harlow moved to a secondary monitor displaying the northern ridgeline. He studied it with particular intensity, as if searching for something specific. His weathered face revealed nothing, but his eyes tracked methodically across the terrain features, examining each possible position where a skilled operative might conceal himself. "Something interesting, Colonel?" Anderson asked suddenly beside him. "Just admiring the terrain," Harlow replied. "Afghanistan has a way of revealing who people really are. Wouldn't you agree, Major?" Anderson's expression hardened. "I think you should explain exactly what your role is here, Colonel. You arrived as an advisor, but seem remarkably well informed about operational details." "I advise on what I know," Harlow said simply. "And I know quite a bit about Russian operations in this region, particularly those involving Nikolai Makarov." "Makarov is dead," Anderson repeated with slightly less conviction. "So was William Morgan," Harlow countered quietly. "Yet death seems remarkably impermanent in this part of the world." Anderson's reaction was subtle but unmistakable. His posture stiffened, his breathing momentarily suspended. When he spoke, his voice had dropped to ensure privacy. "What exactly are you implying, Colonel?" Harlow smiled thinly. "I'm not implying anything, Major. I'm observing. Just as I observed in 1989, when 3 men knew the exact time and location of William Morgan's final operation. Just as I'm observing now, when his daughter happens to be providing overwatch on a mission that bears remarkable similarities to the one that supposedly killed her father." Anderson's hand moved unconsciously toward his sidearm, a motion so slight most would have missed it. Harlow didn't miss it. His smile remained unchanged, but his eyes hardened to flint. "Careful, Major. 480 Marines are watching this command center for leadership. This isn't the time for old ghosts to distract us." Before Anderson could respond, the communications officer interrupted. "Sir, we've established contact with Sergeant Morgan." Both men turned toward the main display as Sarah's voice crackled through the speakers. "Firebase Echo, this is Sierra Mike. I have eyes on multiple enemy positions and a high-value target approaching from the north. Requesting mission parameters." Anderson grabbed the microphone. "Sierra Mike, this is Firebase Actual. You are in direct violation of orders. Return to base immediately." There was a pause before Sarah's measured response came through. "Firebase Actual, I have clear shots on targets actively engaging our Marines. Current position provides optimal fire support. Request permission to continue operation." Anderson's knuckles whitened around the microphone. "Negative, Sierra Mike. Return to base. That is a direct order." Harlow reached over and calmly took the microphone from Anderson's grip. "Sierra Mike, this is Timber Wolf. Be advised, HVT approaching your position is classified Omega level. Identity confirmed as Nikolai Makarov. Repeat, Nikolai Makarov is on site. Proceed at your discretion." He handed the microphone back to a stunned Anderson, whose face had drained of color. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Anderson hissed. "Ensuring mission success," Harlow replied calmly. "Isn't that what we all want?" On the tactical display, the situation in Shakur Valley continued to evolve. Marine units had consolidated defensive positions. The precise sniper fire from the eastern ridge had disrupted the ambush's coordination. Air support was now minutes away from engagement parameters, and on the northern approach, Nikolai Makarov's vehicle had arrived at a command position overlooking the battlefield. High above the valley floor, Sarah processed Harlow's transmission with practiced composure. Nikolai Makarov, the man responsible for her father's death, was physically present, directing the ambush. This wasn't just a tactical operation anymore. It was personal. She adjusted her position slightly, maintaining her cover while shifting her field of fire toward the northern command post. Through her scope, she could see the black Mercedes and the protective details surrounding a central figure. The man moved with authority, directing adjustments to counter her interference. Sarah calculated the shot. Range 180 meters beyond the M40A5's effective range under ideal conditions. Wind conditions had worsened, now gusting unpredictably across the valley. The probability of success hovered at the edge of possibility. As she prepared, movement on the parallel ridge caught her attention again. The mysterious sniper, who had fired on Makarov's position earlier, was repositioning, working methodically toward a better angle. His technique was disciplined, precise, familiar in ways that resonated with her own training. Sarah faced a tactical decision. Continue supporting the Marine units below, eliminate Makarov if possible, or investigate the unknown sniper whose methods mirrored her father's. Professional discipline warred with personal urgency. Before she could decide, her radio crackled again. "Sierra Mike, this is Timber Wolf. Be advised, Makarov will have counter-sniper assets in place. Expect SVD Dragunov teams, likely former Spetsnaz. They'll be searching for you now. Recommend frequent position changes." Sarah keyed her microphone. "Timber Wolf, I've identified a second sniper operating on the western ridge. Unknown affiliation, but they've engaged Makarov's security detail." A long pause followed before Harlow responded. "Describe their methodology. Disciplined, professional, using Soviet counter-ridge techniques but with American shot selection priorities. They're using a sound-suppressed system I can't identify from this distance." Another pause, longer this time. When Harlow's voice returned, it carried a different quality, almost cautious. "Sierra Mike, maintain your focus on supporting Marine elements. Do not engage the unknown sniper. Continue your mission, but be prepared for extract on my command." Sarah acknowledged the order while studying the tactical situation. Below, the Marine units had established a defensive perimeter. Air support would soon be available. The immediate crisis was resolving, but Makarov remained on site, a target of unprecedented value. She shifted position, crawling 20 meters along the ridgeline to a secondary firing point she had identified earlier. The movement saved her life. Seconds after she relocated, her previous position erupted in a shower of rock and dust as heavy-caliber rounds impacted where she had been. Counter-sniper teams had found her original location. Sarah pressed herself flatter against the rocky ground, controlling her breathing, becoming part of the landscape. Through her scope, she identified 2 sniper teams systematically working the ridgeline, hunting for her. Their technique confirmed Harlow's assessment. These weren't insurgents. They were professionals, likely Russian-trained, employing advanced counter-sniper protocols. She keyed her radio, keeping her voice barely above a whisper. "Timberwolf, I am compromised. Multiple hunter teams on my position." "Can you extract?" Harlow's response came immediately. "Negative. They have overwatch on all obvious withdrawal routes. Hold position. Maintain concealment." Harlow's voice remained steady. "Air assets are 4 minutes out." 4 minutes. An eternity when being hunted by professional snipers. Sarah calculated her options, none of them favorable. Remaining stationary meant eventual detection. Moving meant exposure. Either way, the professional teams would find her, unless something disrupted their search pattern. As if responding to her thought, the unknown sniper on the western ridge fired again. Not at Makarov this time, but at one of the counter-sniper teams hunting Sarah. The shot was perfect, eliminating the spotter instantly. The primary shooter ducked for cover, his methodical search interrupted by the sudden loss of his partner. Sarah recognized the opportunity. While the counter-sniper teams redirected their attention toward this new threat, she could reposition to a more defensible location. She began moving laterally along the ridge, using natural terrain features for concealment, making herself invisible against the Afghan landscape. As she moved, her mind processed the tactical implications. The unknown sniper had deliberately drawn fire to protect her position. This wasn't random. It was coordinated, intentional. Someone with professional training was actively supporting her mission. The question was, who and why? Sarah reached a rock outcropping that provided both cover and excellent fields of fire. She settled into position, re-establishing her overwatch of the valley. Through her scope, she located Makarov again. The Russian commander had moved to a more protected position, surrounded by his security detail, directing the increasingly desperate defense against the reorganizing Marine forces. In her earpiece, Harlow's voice returned. "Sierra Mike status. Repositioned. I have visual on HVT again. Air support is 2 minutes out. Marine units are establishing necessary separation for strike parameters." Sarah studied Makarov through her scope. 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, air support would arrive, and the high-value target would undoubtedly withdraw. This might be the only opportunity to eliminate the man responsible for her father's death. She made her decision. Despite the extreme range and challenging conditions, she would take the shot. Sarah began her shooting ritual. Verify distance with rangefinder. Calculate windage adjustments. Compensate for temperature barometric pressure elevation. Control breathing. Find the space between heartbeats. Through her scope, Makarov's features became clear. A face she had only seen in faded photographs now appeared in vivid detail. The man who had orchestrated her father's death stood within reach of her bullet. As she prepared to fire, movement caught her peripheral vision. One of the counter-sniper teams had identified her new position and was setting up for a shot. They would fire within seconds. Sarah had to choose. Take her shot at Makarov and expose herself to the counter-snipers, or abandon the shot and seek cover. The decision was made for her. From the western ridge, the mysterious sniper fired again. The counter-sniper team scrambled as rounds impacted near their position. Sarah recognized the technique immediately. The unknown shooter wasn't trying to hit them. He was forcing them to move, disrupting their shot, buying her time. With the counter-snipers temporarily displaced, Sarah refocused on Makarov. Her finger took up the trigger slack, finding the sweet spot where the slightest additional pressure would release the firing pin. She exhaled half her breath and held. The M40A5 cracked, sending its 175-grain match-grade round across the valley at 2,550 feet per second. Through her scope, Sarah watched as the bullet found its mark. Not center mass, as she had aimed, but a peripheral hit. Makarov staggered, clearly wounded, but not eliminated. His security detail immediately closed around him, rushing him toward the Mercedes. Sarah chambered another round, but the opportunity had passed. Makarov was inside the vehicle, protected by armored plating. The Mercedes accelerated away from the command post, disappearing behind a ridge before she could attempt another shot. Sierra Mike to Timberwolf. HVT is wounded but mobile. Evacuating north by vehicle. Understood, Harlow replied. Can you pursue? Sarah assessed her situation. The counter-sniper teams were regrouping, coordinating to locate her position. Her support of the Marine units had been effective, but had also exposed her to increasingly determined enemy forces. Negative. Position is compromised. Multiple hostile elements converging. Extract immediately. Head west toward Rally Point Echo. Will coordinate pickup. Sarah acknowledged, then began calculating her extraction route. The most obvious path would expose her to enemy fire. The safest route would take too long, allowing the counter-sniper teams to establish containment. As she weighed her options, her radio crackled with an unexpected transmission. Not Harlow's voice, but a different tone distorted by encryption. Sierra Mike, this is Nomad. I can provide cover for your extract. Move west along the secondary ridge. We'll engage hostiles from northern position. Authentication code, Sierra Tango 479er. Sarah froze. The authentication code was an old CIA operational marker her father had taught her years ago. A code that wasn't in any current military encryption protocols. A code only someone with specific historical knowledge would know. Timberwolf. I've received transmission from callsign Nomad, offering extract support. Authentication uses non-standard protocol. Please verify. Harlow's response came after a significant pause. Sierra Mike Nomad is authenticated. Follow his instructions. Something in Harlow's tone raised Sarah's situational awareness. The hesitation suggested complications beyond the immediate tactical situation. Nevertheless, with counter-sniper teams closing in, she had limited options. Sierra Mike moving west. Nomad requesting cover fire in 30 seconds. Confirmed. 30 seconds. Be ready to move fast. Sarah gathered her equipment, securing her rifle and preparing for rapid movement. She counted down silently, controlling her breathing, visualizing her route along the exposed ridgeline. At exactly 30 seconds, precision fire erupted from a position north of her location. The mysterious shooter, now identified as Nomad, engaged the counter-sniper teams with devastating accuracy. 3 shots, 3 impacts, creating immediate confusion among the hostiles. Sarah seized the opportunity, moving rapidly along the ridgeline, using natural cover where available, relying on speed where concealment was impossible. Behind her, the exchange of fire continued as Nomad kept the enemy forces suppressed. She covered 200 meters of difficult terrain before reaching a protected draw that offered a descent route toward the rally point. As she began moving down the steep slope, her radio activated again. Sierra Mike, be advised, 2 hostiles moving to intercept your route from the south. I cannot engage from current position. Sarah immediately adjusted her course, veering north to avoid the approaching threat. The change forced her into more exposed terrain, but the alternative meant direct confrontation with unknown enemy forces. Sierra Mike hostiles have night vision capability. They're tracking your heat signature. This new information changed the tactical equation dramatically. Even in daylight, thermal imaging would make concealment nearly impossible against professional trackers. Sarah made a rapid decision. Instead of continuing toward the rally point, she turned directly toward the northern ridge where Nomad had established his position. If thermal imaging made stealth impossible, then direct link-up with friendly forces offered the best chance of survival. Nomad Sierra Mike, diverting to your position. Request guidance. Understood. Move to grid coordinates 34.51182 north 69.172 east. Cave entrance marked with infrared beacon. Will cover your approach. Sarah oriented herself using her field compass, then began moving toward the specified coordinates. The terrain became increasingly challenging, requiring technical climbing skills rather than simple hiking. She secured her rifle and began ascending the steep rock face, finding handholds in the weathered limestone, pushing her physical endurance to its limits. Gunfire continued sporadically below as enemy forces searched the area she had abandoned. Nomad's precision shots kept them disorganized, preventing any coordinated pursuit. By the time Sarah reached the upper slope, the sounds of conflict had faded, replaced by the hollow whistle of wind through mountain passes. Her radio remained silent as she approached the coordinates. Using her night vision monocular, she scanned the ridgeline until she located a faint infrared signature marking a narrow opening in the rock face. A natural cave perfectly positioned to observe both the valley below and approaching forces from any direction. Sarah approached cautiously, her tactical training overriding her exhaustion. She unslung her rifle, holding it ready as she moved toward the cave entrance. The opening was barely wide enough for a person to pass through, creating a natural choke point that would be easily defensible. Nomad Sierra Mike at coordinates. Approaching cave entrance now. No response came through her radio. Sarah hesitated, sensing potential danger. The tactical situation had evolved too quickly with too many unknown variables. The authentication code suggested alliance, but experience had taught her caution. Nomad requesting verbal confirmation before entry. Still, no response. Sarah positioned herself beside the cave entrance, minimizing her exposure, while maintaining clear fields of fire. The sun had begun its descent toward the western mountains, casting long shadows across the Afghan landscape. Soon, darkness would provide additional concealment, but would also enhance the effectiveness of thermal imaging equipment. She made her decision. Retrieving a small tactical mirror from her kit, she angled it carefully to provide a limited view into the cave interior without exposing herself. The reflection revealed a narrow passage extending approximately 3 meters before opening into a larger chamber. No immediate threats visible. Sarah took a deep breath, then moved swiftly through the entrance, immediately taking cover behind a rock formation inside the passage. Her rifle swept the interior space, identifying potential threats, establishing fields of fire. The cave opened into a surprisingly large chamber, clearly used as a temporary operating base. A small generator powered communications equipment and minimal lighting. Field rations, water supplies, and ammunition were organized with military precision. A sniper rifle, not of American manufacture, rested on a makeshift table constructed from ammunition crates. But the cave appeared empty. No sign of Nomad or any other personnel. Sarah moved cautiously through the space, her senses heightened for any indication of threat or deception. The equipment suggested recent occupation. The communication setup was sophisticated with encryption capabilities beyond standard military issue. Whoever had established this position was well-equipped and professionally trained. Near the back of the chamber, a smaller passage led deeper into the mountain. Sarah approached it carefully, conscious of potential ambush points in the restricted space. As she neared the opening, she detected movement from within. She raised her rifle, acquiring sight picture on the passage entrance. "Step out slowly. Hands visible." She commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "I thought William taught you better manners than that," came a response from the darkness. The voice carried an American accent, weathered by age and experience, with an undertone of amusement that seemed entirely inappropriate for the situation. Sarah maintained her firing position. "Identify yourself, now." A figure emerged slowly from the passage. Male, approximately 6 feet tall, lean, but muscular build, suggesting military training. Age, difficult to determine in the low light, but movement patterns indicated mature experience rather than youthful strength. He wore nondescript tactical clothing without insignia or identification, the preferred attire of special operations personnel operating without official sanction. As he stepped into the chamber's limited light, Sarah felt reality itself shift beneath her. The rifle barrel dipped momentarily before her training reasserted control. She stared at the man's face, a face she knew from photographs and memory, a face that should have been 16 years dead. "Hello, Sarah," William Morgan said quietly. "You've grown into quite the sniper." Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. Deception, hallucination, mistaken identity. But the man before her matched every memory she had preserved of her father. Older now, with gray threading his dark hairlines etched more deeply around his eyes, but unmistakably William Morgan. "My father is dead," she stated flatly, keeping her rifle centered on his chest. "Killed in 1989 during Operation Cyclone." That was the official report, he acknowledged, remaining perfectly still, hands visible at his sides. Reality proved somewhat more complicated. "Authentication code," Sarah demanded, unwilling to trust visual identification alone. "Broken Arrow 472, he responded immediately. "Your mother's favorite song was Beyond the Sea. Your first bullseye was at age 9, not 12 like you told your friends. You broke your arm falling from the oak tree behind our house, but told everyone it happened during soccer practice because you were embarrassed." Details no intelligence briefing would contain. Personal history only her father would know. Still, Sarah maintained her defensive posture. "Explain, now," William nodded slightly, respecting her caution. "The mission in 1989 was compromised from the beginning. We were tracking a major weapons shipment Makarov was coordinating for insurgent forces. I discovered evidence that someone within our operational command was feeding information directly to the Soviets." "Who?" Anderson, William stated flatly. "Major Anderson, though he was a captain then. He'd been turned during an operation in Berlin 3 years earlier. Classic compromise. The Soviets had photographic evidence of him with a local asset. Rather than report the attempted blackmail, he cooperated." Sarah processed this information against her recent interactions with Anderson at Firebase Echo. His resistance to investigating the ambush pattern. His insistence that Makarov was dead, despite evidence to the contrary. "When I confronted Anderson with my suspicions," William continued, "he arranged the ambush with Makarov. My team was eliminated. I was captured, transported to a Soviet black site in Uzbekistan." For 16 years, Sarah's disbelief penetrated her professional composure. William's expression darkened. The Soviet Union collapsed, but Makarov's operation continued under new management. FSB initially, then private enterprise, when political circumstances changed. I spent 5 years in various interrogation facilities before Makarov decided I was more valuable as an asset than a prisoner. "You worked for him." The accusation carried all the weight of 16 years of grief and abandoned childhood. "I survived," William corrected. "I gathered intelligence. I established networks. And I waited for an opportunity to destroy what he had built and return home." He gestured toward the communications equipment. "Everything Makarov has done since 1993 is documented there, including his current operation to supply advanced Russian weapon systems to insurgent forces throughout Afghanistan." Sarah maintained her tactical position, but uncertainty had begun to erode her resolve. The man before her knew details only her father could know. His explanation, while extraordinary, aligned with the intelligence Harlow had shared about Makarov's continued operations. Harlow knew you were alive, she said, realization dawning. William nodded. James and I established contact 3 years ago through back channels. He's been helping me gather evidence against Anderson and Makarov, preparing for the eventual operation to expose them both. And this ambush today, you knew it was coming. I knew Makarov was planning something significant. The intelligence suggesting weapons caches in Shakur Valley came through Anderson's office. The pattern was consistent with previous compromised operations. William's expression hardened. What I didn't anticipate was that you would be the one to break his trap. Sarah finally lowered her rifle, though she maintained tactical awareness of her surroundings. You've been watching me. When possible. Something like regret crossed William's features. I couldn't contact you directly. The surveillance on family members of presumed dead CIA operatives is surprisingly thorough. But I saw you graduate sniper school, watched your first deployment ceremony from a distance. The personal admission breached Sarah's professional detachment. Emotions she had controlled for 16 years threatened to overwhelm her tactical focus. She forced herself to concentrate on operational priorities. Makarov is wounded but escaped. Anderson remains in command at Firebase Echo. 480 Marines were nearly sacrificed to maintain whatever operation they're running. William nodded, shifting immediately to tactical assessment. Makarov won't go far. He has a secondary operations base 20 kilometers north of here. He'll seek medical treatment and regroup. As for Anderson Harlow, we'll keep him contained for now. We need to get this intelligence to command, Sarah stated, gesturing toward the communications equipment. Not yet. William's tone shifted, carrying the authority of decades of covert operations. Anderson isn't the only compromised asset in the American military structure here. Makarov has spent years building a network of influence. If we expose him prematurely, key evidence will disappear, and essential personnel will be eliminated before we can identify them. Sarah processed this information against her military training. Her oath required reporting intelligence through proper channels. But those channels might be compromised. The tactical reality required adaptation to circumstances. "What's your plan?" she asked finally. William moved toward the communications equipment. Makarov will assume I was killed in the confusion of today's operation. He doesn't know I've documented his entire network. While he recovers from his wound, we have a narrow window to access his primary database at the northern facility. Sarah questioned, raising an eyebrow. For the first time, William smiled. The expression transformed his weathered features, revealing the father she remembered from childhood. "You're a better shot than I ever was," he admitted, "and we have similar unfinished business with Nikolai Makarov." Sarah considered the proposition. Her military duty required returning to Firebase Echo. Proper procedure demanded reporting through official channels. But 16 years of believing her father dead, of carrying his memory through sniper school, of enduring dismissal from officers like Anderson, created a different kind of obligation. Her radio crackled, interrupting her thoughts. "Sierra Mike, this is Timberwolf. Marines have secured the valley. Air support has neutralized remaining hostile positions. What's your status?" Sarah glanced at her father, who nodded slightly. "Timberwolf Sierra Mike, secure at alternate position. Have made contact with Nomad. Request secure communication protocol Delta 7. Harlow's response came immediately. "Confirmed, Delta 7. Transmission secure. Timberwolf, be advised, I have confirmed Nomad's identity as William Morgan, authentication verified. He has extensive intelligence on Makarov's network and operations. Anderson is compromised. Repeat. Anderson is compromised." A long pause followed before Harlow responded. "Understood. Anderson is currently occupied coordinating marine extraction. I've secured relevant communication channels. What's your next move? Sarah looked at her father, the question evident in her expression. William approached the radio. James, it's me. Makarov is heading to the northern facility for medical treatment. Primary database is on site. This is our opportunity to access the entire network. Agreed, Harlow responded. But you'll need support. The northern facility is heavily guarded. I have support, William replied, glancing at Sarah. The best sniper in the Morgan family history. That's not saying much, Harlow retorted, a smile evident in his voice. Your groups were always wide right. Only in crosswinds, William countered with the comfortable banter of old comrades. The moment of levity passed quickly as Harlow returned to operational planning. I'll create a diversion at the base. Keep Anderson occupied with recovery operations. You have approximately 12 hours before questions about Sarah's whereabouts become problematic. Understood. We'll move at nightfall. Standard communication blackout during approach. Good hunting, Harlow said simply. Then the radio fell silent. Sarah studied her father with professional assessment. The tactical situation had evolved beyond standard military protocols. She was now effectively participating in a CIA operation without official sanction. The implications for her military career were significant. William seemed to read her thoughts. I understand the position I'm putting you in, he said quietly. If you choose to return to the firebase, I'll ensure Harlow provides cover for your absence. No career implications. Sarah considered the options. Return to military structure file reports that might be intercepted by compromised personnel watch as evidence disappeared and Makarov escaped justice again. Or participate in an unsanctioned operation to eliminate a threat that had nearly killed 480 Marines that day. The decision crystallized with unexpected clarity. We move at nightfall, she confirmed. But first, brief me properly. I need to know everything about Makarov's northern facility. Lay out personnel security systems, exfiltration routes. William's expression shifted to professional respect. Of course. He moved to a map case near the communications equipment and extracted detailed schematics. As he spread them across the makeshift table, Sarah recognized the precision and attention to detail that had informed her own training methodology. The facility is built into the northern face of this ridge, William explained, indicating topographical features. Main entrance here, secondary access points here and here. Guard rotations follow Russian military protocols. Predictable but thorough. Sarah studied the diagrams processing tactical information, identifying sniper positions, calculating fields of fire and concealment options. And the database location, central command room heavily secured. Makarov maintains Russian military-grade encryption, but I've spent years establishing access protocols. William indicated a small device among his equipment. This will download the entire network structure, including all compromised assets within American and coalition forces. Sarah nodded, her mind already formulating operational sequencing. Entry strategy, indirect. William pointed to a maintenance access shaft on the northern face. Ventilation system designed for Afghan summer temperatures, wide enough for personnel access if you remove the intake fans. Security measures, motion sensors, infrared detection, weight-sensitive flooring in key areas. William's briefing carried the precision of extensive personal reconnaissance, but the system has specific vulnerabilities during power cycling sequences. Sarah absorbed the information with professional focus, compartmentalizing emotional reactions to work with her recently resurrected father. The tactical problems were complex but solvable. The personal implications could wait until the mission was complete. Timeline, she asked. We begin our approach at 2100 hours, 3-kilometer infiltration to reach optimal position. Entry window opens at 2300 hours when they cycle backup generators. Primary objective is data extraction. Secondary objective is confirmation of Makarov's presence. Sarah noted the exclusion of elimination as an objective. And if Makarov is on site, William's expression revealed nothing. That becomes a tactical decision based on circumstances at time of execution. Professional language masking, personal vendetta. Sarah recognized the technique because she employed it herself. Understood, she acknowledged, continuing to study the facility schematics. As darkness descended over the Afghan mountains, father and daughter prepared for an operation 16 years in the making. Sarah maintained professional detachment, focusing on equipment checks and mission parameters. William moved with the practiced efficiency of a career operative, anticipating requirements, clarifying tactical questions. Yet beneath the operational veneer, fundamental questions remained unanswered. Why William had remained hidden for so many years after escaping Makarov's control. Why he had watched his daughter's life from a distance rather than making contact. Why Harlow had kept his survival secret even after establishing communication. Those questions would demand answers eventually. But as they prepared to infiltrate a Russian black site to expose a decades-long conspiracy, personal history became secondary to operational success. As they completed final equipment preparations, William paused, studying his daughter with an expression that transcended professional assessment. "Sarah," he said quietly, "when this is finished, there's something you should know about your mother." The unexpected reference to her mother, who had died when Sarah was too young to form memories, interrupted her tactical focus. "What about her?" she asked, unable to mask her surprise. William checked his watch, then shook his head slightly. "After the mission, we need to move now. Infiltration window opens in 40 minutes. Sarah nodded, compartmentalizing her curiosity, as she had been trained to do. Whatever revelation William intended could wait. Operational success demanded full attention to immediate tactical requirements. They moved out into the Afghan darkness, two shadows against the mountainside, united by blood training and a shared mission to expose a conspiracy that had nearly cost hundreds of American lives. The questions of past and future would find their answers in time. For now, the mission parameters were clear. Find Makarov's database. Extract the intelligence. Identify the compromised network. And perhaps, if tactical opportunity presented itself, eliminate the man who had orchestrated William Morgan's death and Sarah Morgan's 16 years of grieving. The Afghan night enveloped them in darkness as they moved across the rugged terrain. Stars glittered overhead with cold brilliance, providing minimal illumination against the black silhouettes of mountain ridges. Sarah and William maintained tactical silence, communicating through hand signals and occasional whispers when absolutely necessary. Their movement pattern followed natural terrain features, utilizing draws and depressions to minimize their silhouettes against the skyline. 20 minutes into their approach, William raised his fist, the universal signal to halt. Sarah froze instantly, her body becoming one with the landscape. Ahead, vehicle headlights cut through the darkness, moving along a dirt track that wound through the valley below. "Patrol," William whispered. "Routine security sweep. 2 vehicles, 4 personnel each." Sarah noted how he delivered the assessment without using optics. Knowledge born from extensive surveillance over time rather than immediate observation. The depth of his preparation became increasingly apparent with each passing moment. They waited in perfect stillness until the vehicles passed, then continued their approach. The northern facility gradually took shape against the mountainside. Unlike most compounds in Afghanistan, this structure incorporated into the natural rock face, revealing only minimal exterior signatures. No perimeter walls marked its boundaries. No guard towers announced its purpose. Only subtle indicators suggested human occupation, ventilation outputs disguised as natural rock formations, surveillance equipment concealed within artificial boulders, communication arrays designed to resemble stunted trees. William directed them toward a shallow depression 800 meters from the main entrance, close enough for observation, far enough to avoid immediate detection. As they settled into position, he withdrew a specialized night vision monocular from his equipment and passed it to Sarah. Thermal imaging with Russian counter-surveillance protocols, he explained quietly, designed to defeat their own systems. Sarah accepted the device and conducted a methodical survey of the facility exterior. The sophistication of the security measures exceeded standard insurgent capabilities. Motion sensors covered obvious approach vectors. Infrared detection systems monitored dead spaces. Armed personnel maintained disciplined patrol patterns that overlapped coverage zones without creating predictable timing vulnerabilities. Professional security implemented by experienced operators. Makarov built this during the Soviet occupation, William explained as Sarah completed her assessment. Originally, a forward intelligence outpost monitoring Mujahideen movements. After the Soviet withdrawal, he maintained it as a private facility for weapons transfers and intelligence operations. Why wasn't it identified by coalition forces? Sarah asked, continuing her surveillance. It was, William replied with subtle emphasis. 3 times. Each time operational plans to investigate were mysteriously redirected or cancelled. Anderson's influence. Sarah processed this information against her existing understanding of command decisions. Patterns emerged where previously she had seen only isolated incidents, operational anomalies, intelligence gaps, resources allocated to lower priority targets while significant threats remained unaddressed. "How deep does his network go?" she asked. "That's what we're here to discover." William checked his watch. "Generator cycling begins in approximately 40 minutes. We need to be in position at the ventilation access point before then." They moved with practiced efficiency, utilizing natural cover to approach the facility's northern face. William led them through a carefully plotted route that avoided the most heavily monitored sectors. Sarah noted how he navigated with absolute confidence, revealing intimate knowledge of the security architecture. Years of patient observation transformed into tactical advantage. As they neared the ventilation access point, William gestured for Sarah to provide overwatch while he examined the entry mechanism. The maintenance shaft appeared relatively unguarded compared to main access points, but Sarah maintained vigilant observation, identifying multiple potential threats within her field of view. 2 perimeter guards maintained position 50 meters east, their attention primarily focused outward. A security camera mounted on a nearby rock formation swept the area at regular intervals. Motion sensors, placed at strategic locations, created interlocking detection zones. Standard security protocols for a facility of this nature. William worked silently at the access panel, manipulating components with practiced precision. His movements revealed specialized knowledge beyond standard military training. CIA tradecraft passed down through generations of field operatives. After several minutes, he signaled completion and motioned for Sarah to join him. "Ventilation system bypasses primary security architecture," he explained quietly. "Designed for maintenance access during extreme weather conditions, security focuses on obvious entry points, leaving this as a relative blind spot." Sarah studied the opening with professional assessment. "Tight fit." "Manageable," William countered. "Russians designed for function over comfort." He checked his watch again. Generator cycle begins in 7 minutes. Electronic surveillance will experience a 3-second reset. That's our window. Sarah verified her equipment was secured and would not create noise during entry. Her rifle slung tight against her back, ammunition and essential gear distributed to minimize profile. William conducted similar preparation, then positioned himself to monitor the security camera's sweep pattern. "On my signal," he whispered. Sarah nodded, controlling her breathing, focusing on the immediate tactical requirements rather than the extraordinary circumstances that had brought her to this moment. Infiltrating a Russian black site with her resurrected father to expose a conspiracy that threatened American military operations. The personal implications remained compartmentalized, subordinate to operational success. The distant hum of generators suddenly shifted pitch. William raised his hand, counting down with his fingers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. "Now," he whispered. They moved in perfect synchronization. William removing the access panel as Sarah maintained security awareness. The opening revealed a narrow shaft barely wide enough for human passage. Without hesitation, William entered first, navigating the confined space with practiced efficiency. Sarah followed, securing the access panel behind them. The ventilation shaft extended 15 meters before opening into a secondary maintenance corridor. The space contained basic infrastructure support equipment clearly designed for utility rather than regular human occupation. Dust patterns on the floor indicated infrequent use, supporting William's assessment of security vulnerabilities. William oriented himself with immediate certainty, indicating they should proceed east along the corridor. Sarah followed, maintaining tactical spacing, her senses heightened for any indication of security personnel or surveillance systems. "Central server room is 2 levels down," William whispered. "Access requires passing through main security checkpoint." "Alternatives?" Sarah asked, assessing tactical options. "Maintenance shaft connects to lower levels. Less direct, but avoids primary security nodes." They proceeded through increasingly complex infrastructure spaces, navigating around climate control equipment, electrical conduits, and water purification systems. The facility's sophistication became increasingly apparent with each section they traversed. This was not a temporary outpost or improvised compound. This represented permanent infrastructure designed for extended operations. After 20 minutes of careful movement through maintenance areas, William halted at a junction where their corridor intersected with a more finished passage. He withdrew a small device from his equipment, activating a display that showed thermal signatures moving beyond the doorway. "2 security personnel," he indicated. "Routine patrol pattern. 15-second interval between passes." Sarah assessed the tactical situation. "We need a diversion." William nodded agreement, then withdrew a small metallic object from his pocket. "Russian flashbang variant. Modified for reduced sound signature, but enhanced electromagnetic pulse. Will temporarily disrupt nearby electronics." The approach demonstrated characteristic CIA methodology. Adapted enemy technology modified for specialized application deployed with precise tactical awareness. Sarah recognized patterns from her father's teaching that had informed her own military development. William calculated timing, then activated the device and rolled it down a side corridor. Moments later, a muffled thump accompanied a brief electromagnetic surge that temporarily affected their own equipment. Beyond the doorway, voices raised in confusion as security personnel responded to the unexpected disturbance. "Now," William whispered. They moved through the doorway and immediately took cover behind storage containers. The security personnel had moved toward the disturbance, leaving their assigned positions vacant. William directed them toward a service elevator located at the corridor's far end, using hand signals to coordinate their movement. The elevator required security authentication. William produced a small electronic device that interfaced with the control panel, executing a pre-programmed bypass sequence. After several seconds, the doors opened without triggering alarms. Inside the elevator, William selected the lower level where server infrastructure was located. As the car descended, Sarah studied her father's operational methodology. His actions revealed extensive preparation and intimate knowledge of the facility's security architecture. Not the work of months, but years of patient intelligence gathering. "How long have you been planning this?" she asked quietly. William's expression remained professionally neutral. "Since 2001, when Makarov transitioned from Russian intelligence to private enterprise, security protocols changed, created opportunities for intelligence gathering previously unavailable." "And Anderson, when did you confirm his involvement?" "Berlin, 1986. He was compromised during a joint operation tracking Soviet intelligence officers. I suspected but couldn't prove it until 1989, when operational details known only to 3 people were leaked to Makarov." The elevator slowed as it approached the designated level. William readied his weapon, a suppressed Russian Makarov pistol, appropriate for close-quarters engagement. Sarah similarly prepared, shifting her rifle to ready position while drawing her sidearm. The doors opened to reveal a dimly lit corridor lined with server racks. Climate control systems hummed steadily, maintaining optimal temperature for electronic equipment. No security personnel visible, but surveillance cameras monitored the space from multiple angles. William indicated a control room at the far end of the corridor. Behind glass partitions, sophisticated computer systems operated under automated protocols. Their objective lay inside that secured space. "Surveillance blind spot between camera 3 and 4, William noted, indicating a specific path through the server racks. "Modified sweep pattern creates a 3-second gap." They timed their movement carefully, utilizing the identified vulnerability to approach the control room without triggering visual alerts. At the secured door, William again deployed his electronic bypass device, interfacing with the authentication system. The process required longer than the previous elevator access, indicating more sophisticated security protocols. Sarah maintained security awareness, monitoring potential approach vectors while William worked. After nearly 30 seconds, the control room door clicked open. They entered swiftly, securing the space, before proceeding to the central computer terminal. The system remained active, displaying scrolling data in Cyrillic text across multiple monitors. William immediately connected his specialized device to the main terminal, initiating the data extraction process. "System access established," he confirmed quietly. "Download commencing. Estimated completion time, 12 minutes. Sarah took position to provide security monitoring both the corridor beyond the glass partition and the control room interior. The facility maintained uncomfortable silence, broken only by the steady hum of electronic equipment and climate control systems. "While we wait," she said, keeping her voice just above a whisper, "perhaps you could explain why you watched from a distance all these years instead of making contact." William continued monitoring the data transfer, his expression revealing nothing. "Initial years, no choice. Makarov kept me under constant surveillance. After establishing limited autonomy, different calculation. CIA monitors family members of deceased operatives for potential contact. Standard protocol for identifying deep cover agents who might attempt reconnection." "You thought they'd arrest you if you contacted me," Sarah surmised. "I knew they would," William corrected. "Anderson maintained specific monitoring protocols for your activities. Any attempt at contact would have compromised everything I'd built." Sarah processed this against her understanding of intelligence operations. The explanation carried tactical logic, but failed to address emotional considerations. "And after you established contact with Harlow," she pressed. "3 years, you said." William's expression shifted subtly, revealing the first indication of emotional complexity beneath his operational facade. "Operational security remained paramount until we identified all compromised assets. Anderson wasn't working alone." "That's not an answer," Sarah observed. For the first time, William's professional composure faltered slightly. "No," he admitted. "It's not." Before he could continue, the data extraction device emitted a soft tone indicating process completion. William immediately refocused on the operational requirements, disconnecting the device and securing it within his equipment. "Download complete," he confirmed. "Network structure, operational directives, personnel identifications. Everything needed to expose Makarov's entire organization." As William secured the equipment, Sarah noticed a specific document displayed on one of the monitors. Unlike the scrolling Cyrillic text on other screens, this document showed English text with what appeared to be personnel files. The heading read, "Operation Cyclone Secondary Assets." "What's that?" she asked, indicating the screen. William glanced at the display, his expression changing almost imperceptibly. "Historical record. Soviet intelligence assessment of CIA operations during the Afghan conflict." Sarah studied the document more carefully, recognizing familiar names from her father's past operations. Then, a specific entry caught her attention. Catherine Morgan appeared in the asset list with operational notations in Russian that she couldn't decipher. "Why is my mother's name in a Soviet intelligence file?" Sarah asked, her voice hardening with sudden suspicion. William's reaction confirmed the significance of her discovery. His professional detachment faltered momentarily, revealing complex emotional undercurrents. "That's part of what I needed to tell you," he said quietly. "When this mission is complete." Sarah's tactical focus shifted. The revelation suggested previously unknown dimensions to their circumstances. "Tell me now." William checked the corridor beyond the control room, verifying they remained undetected, then turned back to Sarah. "Your mother didn't die of illness as you were told. She was a CIA linguistics specialist assigned to Operation Cyclone. We met in Afghanistan in 1982 during Soviet occupation." "She was an operative." Sarah's professional composure wavered as personal history realigned against this new information. "One of our best Pashto translators. Helped establish critical relationships with Mujahideen commanders. Her work was classified above top secret due to direct field placement." Sarah struggled to reconcile this revelation with her limited childhood memories and the narrative she had accepted throughout her life. What really happened to her? William's expression revealed genuine grief beneath his operational demeanor. "Makarov happened. When he couldn't reach me directly, he targeted her. Vehicle accident outside Kabul in 1987. No accident." The revelation landed with physical force. Sarah had grown up believing her mother died from an unspecified illness. The reality of assassination as reprisal against her father's operations created a fundamentally different understanding of her family history. "Why maintain the deception after all these years?" she demanded. "Protection," William replied simply. "As long as you believe the official story, you wouldn't ask questions that might attract attention from Makarov's network. Wouldn't investigate circumstances that would identify you as my daughter." The tactical implications became immediately clear to Sarah. Her entire career had proceeded without connection to her father's CIA operations, precisely because that connection remained buried beneath layers of deception. Had Makarov identified her relationship to William Morgan, she would have become a target long before reaching her current position. Before she could respond, a security alarm activated throughout the facility. Not the localized response to detected intruders, but a general alert signaling facility-wide emergency. William immediately accessed the security monitors, assessing the situation with practiced efficiency. Perimeter breach. Eastern access point. Multiple personnel entering with tactical equipment. Sarah moved to view the security feed, identifying armed operators moving with professional discipline through the facility's upper levels. Their equipment and movement patterns indicated advanced military training rather than standard security personnel. Not Russians, William assessed. American equipment. Special operations configuration. The tactical situation had suddenly transformed. Unknown American forces had breached the facility, their objectives unclear, but their presence creating immediate complications for the extraction plan. Firebase Echo assets, Sarah suggested. William studied the operator's approach pattern. Negative. Firebase units would deploy with standard military protocols. These operators are moving with CIA field methodologies. Sarah processed this assessment against her understanding of command structures. Anderson, William nodded grimly. He must have identified our infiltration and deployed a capture team. How? Sarah asked, assessing tactical options for their increasingly complicated extraction. Harlow, William replied, his expression revealing disappointment rather than surprise. They must have broken his deception protocols at the firebase. This new development fundamentally altered their tactical situation. The extraction route they had planned now likely faced interception by professionally trained American operators. Not enemies to be eliminated, but fellow servicemen operating under compromised command. Options, Sarah asked, defaulting to tactical assessment rather than emotional response. William accessed additional security feeds, tracking the American team's progress through the facility. They're moving directly toward the server room. Someone provided them with specific intelligence about our objective. Alternative exits. Maintenance shaft continues to lower level, William indicated. Emergency exit tunnel designed for Russian evacuation during the Soviet occupation emerges 2 kilometers north of the facility. As they prepared to move, the security feed revealed new activity at the facility's main entrance. A black Mercedes G-Wagon approached the gate, immediately granted access without standard security protocols. Makarov, William confirmed studying the vehicle's occupants, returning earlier than anticipated. The tactical situation continued to deteriorate. American operators approaching from above, Makarov entering from the main level, their position increasingly compromised with each passing minute. Priorities, Sarah asked, focusing on operational requirements. William secured the data extraction device, confirming its contents remained intact. Primary objective achieved. Network data secured. Extraction now paramount. They moved toward the maintenance access point that would lead to the emergency exit tunnel. As they prepared to enter the shaft, William hesitated, studying the security feed showing Makarov entering the facility. "What?" Sarah asked, recognizing the change in his demeanor. "Tactical opportunity," William replied. "Makarov is heading directly to the medical facility 1 level up. Minimal security detail due to emergency response focused on the American team." Sarah immediately grasped his intention. Objective modification. Target of opportunity. William nodded once, his expression revealing the personal vendetta that had sustained him through 16 years of deep cover operation. The network data exposes the conspiracy, but Makarov himself remains the primary threat. The decision point crystallized with perfect clarity. Their extraction route led downward to relative safety. The alternative meant ascending toward both Makarov and the approaching American team, significantly increasing operational risk. Sarah considered the options from both tactical and personal perspectives. The professional Marine sergeant recognized the logical extraction choice. The daughter, who had believed her father dead for 16 years, who had just learned her mother was assassinated on Makarov's orders, saw a different imperative. "We go up," she decided. William nodded once, his expression conveying both approval and concern. Tactical approach through secondary maintenance shaft. Medical facility has minimal security coverage, assuming main entrance protection. They moved with renewed urgency, navigating through the maintenance infrastructure toward the upper level where medical facilities were located. William led with confident familiarity, suggesting extensive study of the facility schematics over prolonged surveillance periods. As they ascended through the maintenance shaft, Sarah recalibrated her tactical awareness. The mission parameters had expanded beyond data extraction to potentially include high-value target elimination. Not a standard military objective, but aligned with CIA operational directives for compromised intelligence assets. They reached the access point adjacent to the medical facility. William deployed a fiber optic camera through a ventilation grate, conducting visual reconnaissance before committing to entry. The small display showed a modern medical suite with equipment far beyond standard field hospital capabilities. Makarov sat on an examination table, his jacket removed to reveal a bandaged shoulder wound. A medical professional attended to him while two security personnel maintained position near the main entrance. Their attention focused outward, monitoring for threats from the primary corridor rather than maintenance access points. William withdrew the camera and outlined the tactical situation with hand signals. 3 targets in the medical suite. Additional security likely in adjacent corridors responding to the facility breach. Limited window for action before the American team reached their position. Sarah acknowledged the assessment and prepared her weapon. The confined space would require close quarters engagement rather than the distance shooting she specialized in. She drew her sidearm, confirming suppressor attachment and chamber load status. William performed similar preparation, then held up 3 fingers, initiating the countdown sequence. 3, 2, 1. They breached the maintenance access point in perfect coordination. William engaged the security personnel with immediate precision, 2 suppressed shots eliminating the threats before they could respond. Sarah simultaneously targeted the medical professional a single round, ensuring he couldn't interfere or raise alarm. Makarov remained seated on the examination table, his reaction revealing professional assessment rather than panic. His eyes registered recognition as William stepped fully into the light weapon-trained center mass on his former captor. "William Morgan," Makarov said in accented English, his tone suggesting mere inconvenience rather than mortal danger. "I thought perhaps it was you causing problems in the valley today." "Hello, Nikolai," William replied, his weapon unwavering. "It's been a long time." Makarov's gaze shifted to Sarah, studying her with calculated assessment. "And you brought your daughter. How sentimental." His cold smile revealed nothing beyond professional evaluation. "She has her mother's eyes." Catherine was equally stubborn about operational parameters. The casual reference to her mother triggered Sarah's emotional response, but her training maintained tactical discipline. Her weapon remained steady, covering Makarov, while William approached. "Your network is compromised," William stated flatly. "The entire operation exposed. Every asset, every connection, every black fund transfer. Currently uploading to CIA headquarters." Makarov appeared unmoved by this declaration. "Inconvenient, but hardly catastrophic. Networks can be rebuilt, assets replaced. You, of all people, should understand operational resilience, William." "Not this time," William countered. The data includes evidence of Anderson's activities. Your entire American military intelligence pipeline is burned. For the first time, Makarov's expression revealed genuine concern. Anderson is merely one node in a much larger network. You've spent 16 years pursuing a phantom while missing the larger operation. Enlighten me, William suggested, maintaining tactical advantage while extracting additional intelligence. Makarov studied him with calculated assessment, clearly weighing strategic options against his immediate survival requirements. The Cold War never ended, William. It merely transformed. Russia. America proxies fighting through deniable operations. Afghanistan today, Syria tomorrow. The names change, but the game continues. And you profit from both sides, Sarah observed, identifying the operational pattern from her military experience. Makarov acknowledged her assessment with slight appreciation. She is perceptive. Weapons to insurgents, intelligence to coalition forces. The conflict sustains itself through predictable human behavior, including revenge. William noted his weapon still trained on Makarov's chest. Is that why you're here? Makarov asked, his tone suggesting disappointed professionalism. 16 years of deep cover work, culminating in a personal vendetta. I expected better strategic thinking from you, William. This isn't about revenge, William replied. It's about completing the operation, eliminating a threat to American security interests. Makarov's expression revealed subtle amusement. How dedicated to American interests are you, William? After 16 years among the enemy, the psychological profile suggests significant identity transformation under prolonged deep cover conditions. The psychological warfare attempt was professional but transparent. Sarah recognized the technique from her own training. Create doubt, disrupt operational cohesion, exploit potential vulnerabilities between team members. Enough, William stated flatly. You're out of options, Nikolai. There are always options, Makarov countered calmly. For instance, the American team currently searching for you is not Anderson's. They're operating under direct CIA authority. Your friend Harlow sent them not to capture you, but to extract you safely. The revelation created momentary tactical uncertainty. William maintained his weapon position but glanced briefly at Sarah, assessing the potential veracity of this information against their operational understanding. Makarov recognized the hesitation and continued. Anderson discovered your presence at Firebase Echo. Harlow created a diversion operation to draw attention away from your infiltration here. The team approaching now has orders to bring both of you out safely. Sarah maintained tactical focus while processing this new information. Verify, she suggested to William. William reached for his communication device with his non-dominant hand, maintaining weapon control on Makarov. Before he could activate it, the facility lights flickered and emergency systems engaged. Security alarms intensified throughout the complex. It appears your extraction team has disrupted primary power systems, Makarov observed calmly. Standard CIA protocol for facility neutralization. The tactical situation had evolved beyond their initial parameters. If Makarov spoke truthfully, the approaching American team represented extraction support rather than capture threat. If he was manipulating them, the team remained a hostile element in already complex circumstances. William made a tactical decision. Sarah verified team identification through secure channel. I'll maintain control here. Sarah stepped back toward the corridor access point, maintaining visual contact with both William and Makarov while activating her communication device. Sierra Mike to approaching team. Authentication request. Challenge code Sierra Tango 479er. The response came immediately through her earpiece. Sierra Mike, this is Blackjack Actual. Authentication response Echo, November 360. Harlow sends his regards. We are friendly elements tasked with your extraction. The authentication sequence matched CIA protocols William had demonstrated earlier. Sarah signaled confirmation to her father, indicating the approaching team appeared legitimate. Makarov observed this exchange with professional interest. So predictable. Harlow always favored standard extraction procedures over tactical innovation. William maintained his position weapon, still centered on Makarov. The team confirmation doesn't change your situation, Nikolai. The operation is compromised. Your network exposed. Yet, you hesitate, Makarov noted, studying William with experienced assessment. 16 years playing a role affects fundamental psychological orientation. You've lived in my world too long to simply return to American protocols. The psychological manipulation attempt continued, but Sarah recognized something more significant in Makarov's behavior. His calmness suggested confidence beyond their immediate tactical advantage. He believed something they didn't yet perceive. "William," she said quietly. "He's stalling." The observation crystallized their tactical reality. Makarov wasn't negotiating for survival. He was extending the confrontation, creating time for some alternative development. William reached the same conclusion simultaneously. "Security protocol," he stated, understanding dawning. "Facility lockdown activated by the power disruption." Makarov's slight smile confirmed the assessment. "Automated systems, quite thorough in their implementation. Your extraction team has approximately 3 minutes before hermetic seals engage throughout the complex. After that, departure becomes significantly more challenging." The tactical equation shifted immediately. Eliminating Makarov now potentially sacrificed their extraction window. The approaching team would reach their position soon, but facility lockdown protocols threatened to trap everyone inside. "Decision point," Sarah stated simply. William maintained tactical control over Makarov while assessing options. The mission's primary objective, securing network data, had been accomplished. The secondary opportunity target, Makarov himself, now presented complex extraction complications. "The data is what matters," William concluded his operational assessment, overriding personal vendetta. "We move now." Makarov's expression revealed genuine surprise at this decision. 16 years, William. 16 years pursuing me, and you choose to walk away at the moment of completion." "The mission was never about you," William replied. "It was about your network. That objective is complete." He backed toward the corridor entrance, where Sarah maintained security position, his weapon still trained on Makarov. "Your organization is finished, Nikolai. Every compromised asset exposed. Every operation compromised. Your value to your FSB handlers is now 0. You understand nothing about value." Makarov countered, his professional composure finally showing cracks of genuine emotion. "This was never about intelligence networks or weapons transfers. Those were means, not objectives." "Enlighten me quickly," William suggested, continuing his controlled withdrawal. "Your security protocols don't leave much time for exposition." Makarov's expression hardened with cold intensity. "Afghanistan, Chechnya, Georgia, Ukraine, individual conflicts serving a larger strategic objective. The restoration of Russian territorial influence through managed instability. You spent 16 years documenting the trees while missing the forest entirely." The revelation suggested operational scope beyond their existing intelligence assessment. Not merely a rogue intelligence officer pursuing profit through conflict exploitation, but a coordinated strategic campaign with state-level objectives. "Then we'll dismantle the forest as well," William concluded, reaching the corridor entrance. Goodbye, Nikolai. As they prepared to exit the medical facility, Makarov made a final observation. Catherine would be disappointed in your strategic thinking, William. She always understood the larger implications. The reference to Sarah's mother triggered an immediate response. Sarah stepped forward, her weapon raised. What did you say? William reached to restrain her. Sarah, no. He's manipulating you. We need to move now. Listen to your father, Makarov suggested, his calculated calm returning. Emotional response leads to tactical error. Catherine understood that principle. How would you know what my mother understood? Sarah demanded, professional discipline warring with personal response. Makarov's expression revealed subtle satisfaction at having created the desired disruption. Because Catherine Morgan wasn't merely a linguistics specialist, my dear. She was a deep-cover CIA operative, assigned to monitor William's own activities. Your father's dedication to Cold War objectives had become something of a concern to his superiors. The revelation landed with devastating impact. Sarah looked to William, searching for immediate denial of this accusation. Instead, she found complex recognition in his expression, confirming at least partial truth to Makarov's claim. Sarah, we don't have time for this. William insisted, urgency evident in his tone. Facility lockdown initiates in less than 2 minutes. Your mother was an extraordinary operative. Makarov continued, exploiting the momentary confusion. When we captured her in 1987, she revealed nothing despite extensive interrogation. Professional to the end. The calculated cruelty of this revelation achieved its intended effect. Sarah's tactical discipline momentarily faltered as previously unknown history reconstructed her understanding of family relationships. William used the opportunity to pull her into the corridor away from Makarov's psychological manipulation. He's lying, William stated emphatically as they moved toward the approaching extraction team's position. Catherine was never captured. The vehicle accident was engineered by Makarov's operatives. I saw the intelligence confirmation myself. Sarah maintained operational movement while processing these conflicting narratives. But she was CIA. She was monitoring you. William's expression revealed complex emotional territory beneath his operational demeanor. Initially, yes, Operation Cyclone created divided objectives within the agency. Some elements prioritized Soviet defeat regardless of consequences. Others recognized the long-term implications of empowering extremist elements. Catherine was assigned to ensure my operations aligned with strategic rather than tactical objectives. They continued moving through the facility corridors, the distant sound of the approaching team growing louder with each passing moment. Facility emergency systems announced imminent lockdown, confirming Makarov's warning about security protocols. And you knew this? Sarah asked, professional movement continuing despite emotional disruption. Not initially, William admitted. When I discovered her assignment, we were already married. You were already born. By then, her reports had consistently supported my operational decisions. She believed in the mission, but recognized potential blowback if certain elements gained too much power or access. The approaching team's radio communication became audible through Sarah's earpiece. Sierra Mike, this is Blackjack Actual. We have your position on thermal. ETA 30 seconds. Be advised, facility lockdown protocols initiating. Confirmed, Blackjack. Sarah responded automatically, professional training overriding emotional turmoil. We have the package and are moving toward your position. William navigated the corridor junctions with practiced familiarity, leading them toward the extraction team's approach vector. Catherine's death wasn't merely revenge against my operations, Sarah. She had uncovered evidence of Anderson's compromise. She was preparing to report him when the accident occurred. This revelation altered the calculus of their family tragedy. Not simply collateral damage in Cold War operations, but targeted assassination to protect a compromised asset. The personal implications would require processing beyond their immediate tactical situation. Makarov knows we have limited time, Sarah observed, refocusing on operational requirements. He's implementing contingency protocols even now. William nodded agreement, his pace increasing as facility warning systems announced final lockdown sequencing. The network data remains our primary objective. Everything else is secondary. They rounded a final corner and encountered the approaching American team. 6 operators in tactical equipment moving with professional discipline immediately recognized them and adjusted security posture. "Sierra Mike Ghost, actual," the lead operator acknowledged using Williams' operational designation. Harlow sends his compliments and apologizes for the rushed extraction. Facility security protocols accelerated unexpectedly. "Anderson," William asked, accepting integration into the extraction formation as they began movement toward exit vectors. "Contained," the team leader confirmed. Harlow identified additional compromised assets at Firebase Echo. Situation neutralized, pending formal investigation. They moved with coordinated efficiency through the facility corridors, the team establishing security perimeters at each junction. Emergency systems continued countdown sequences indicating less than 60 seconds before complete lockdown implementation. "Extraction vehicle is at the main entrance," the team leader explained as they approached the facility's upper level. "Helicopter waiting at secondary location 5 kilometers north." As they neared the main entrance, an explosion reverberated through the facility structure. The team immediately adjusted formation, establishing defensive positions while assessing the new threat. "Status report," the leader demanded through his communication system. "Main entrance compromised," came the response from their perimeter element. "Vehicle explosion. Multiple hostile forces approaching from North Ridge." The tactical situation deteriorated rapidly. Their primary extraction route now blocked secondary options, limited by imminent facility, lockdown, hostile forces converging on their position. William immediately assessed alternatives, his operational experience evident in rapid tactical processing. "Maintenance tunnel," he suggested to the team leader. "Eastern sector. Bypasses main security architecture." The leader acknowledged without hesitation, accepting Williams' expertise regarding facility layout. Blackjack elements adjust extraction route. Follow Ghost Actual's lead to alternate exit point. They moved with renewed urgency through the facility corridors, alarms intensifying as lockdown procedures approached completion. William navigated with absolute confidence, leading them through increasingly utilitarian sections of the complex toward the maintenance access he had identified earlier. Sarah maintained tactical awareness while processing the revelations about her family history. Professional discipline contained emotional response, compartmentalizing personal implications for later consideration. The mission parameters remained unchanged. Secure the network data. Extract safely. Expose the conspiracy. As they approached the maintenance access point, gunfire erupted behind them. Security forces had entered the corridor, engaging their rear elements. The extraction team immediately established covering positions, returning disciplined fire, while continuing movement toward the exit. "Hostiles blocking primary route," the team leader reported. "Multiple positions coordinated response." William assessed the tactical situation with experienced calculation. They're following Makarov's contingency protocol, containment rather than elimination. He prioritizes the network data over personnel. The team's rear security element reported increasing pressure from facility forces. Ammunition expenditure accelerated beyond sustainable levels for extended engagement. The tactical window for successful extraction narrowed with each passing second. William made a command decision. Sarah and I will proceed with the data package. Your team provides covering fire, then follows alternate route through lower-level access point. The team leader hesitated momentarily, weighing operational priorities against extraction protocols. Negative. Team remains intact until extraction complete. The data is what matters. William countered, his tone carrying the authority of decades of operational experience. Everything else is expendable, including us. Sarah recognized the tactical logic while rejecting the operational conclusion. "We move together," she stated firmly. "Marine protocol, no one left behind." The tension between CIA operational parameters and military extraction protocols created momentary command uncertainty. The team leader assessed both arguments against increasing hostile pressure and facility lockdown warnings. 90 seconds to implement William's plan, he decided finally. Primary package moves now with Morgan and Ghost Actual. Team provides covering fire, then executes secondary extraction through lower level as directed. The decision established clear operational priorities. The intelligence package would proceed with Sarah and William, while the extraction team created tactical space through coordinated covering fire. The approach balanced mission objectives against personnel extraction priorities. William led Sarah through the maintenance access point as the team established defensive positions. The narrow utility passage extended beyond the facility's main security architecture, eventually connecting with external access points designed for infrastructure maintenance. As they navigated the confined space facility, lockdown protocols completed their sequence. Mechanical sounds reverberated through the structure as security barriers engaged and environmental systems cycled to isolated operation. Behind them, the sound of continued gunfire indicated the extraction team maintained their covering position. "They won't all make it," Sarah observed professional assessment, recognizing tactical realities. William's expression revealed the calculation of operational cost against mission objectives. They understood the parameters when they accepted the assignment. The cold pragmatism of intelligence operations contrasted sharply with Sarah's military experience. Marines emphasized personnel extraction regardless of operational complexity. CIA protocols prioritized intelligence objectives above individual operators. The philosophical difference revealed fundamental distinctions between their professional backgrounds. They continued through the maintenance tunnel, eventually reaching an exterior access point that had escaped the facility's lockdown protocols. The exit emerged on the eastern face of the mountain ridge, providing limited cover but clear extraction vectors toward the designated helicopter landing zone. Williams secured the access point behind them, then assessed their tactical situation. Darkness provided concealment advantages, but thermal detection systems would track their movement across exposed terrain. The helicopter landing zone lay 5 kilometers north, requiring extended travel through potentially monitored territory. "Route assessment," Sarah asked, defaulting to tactical planning rather than dwelling on the personal revelations that had emerged during the operation. Williams surveyed the landscape with experienced evaluation. Ridgeline provides maximum concealment from ground-based observation. Valley floor offers faster movement, but increased exposure risk. Sarah conducted her own tactical assessment, applying sniper methodology to route selection. Split approach. I move ridgeline, you take lower elevation, creates tactical confusion for tracking elements. The approach demonstrated professional innovation beyond standard extraction protocols. William acknowledged the tactical advantage with professional appreciation. Agreed. Maintain communication discipline. Rally at grid coordinates 3 kilometers north for final approach to extraction point. As they prepared to separate, William hesitated momentarily. "Sarah," he began, professional demeanor softening slightly. "What Makarov said about your mother." "Later." Sarah interrupted, maintaining operational focus. Mission parameters first. Personal history after extraction. William nodded once, respecting her professional discipline, while recognizing the emotional complexity that awaited resolution. 3 kilometers north, watch for Russian thermal tracking protocols along the eastern approach. They separated, each taking their designated route toward the extraction rally point. Sarah moved along the ridgeline, utilizing natural terrain features for concealment, applying the landscape reading skills her father had taught her years before. William proceeded along the lower elevation, maintaining parallel movement while creating separate tracking signatures for any pursuit elements. As Sarah navigated the difficult terrain, her mind processed the operational implications of their mission's success. The network data secured from Makarov's facility would expose compromised assets throughout American military and intelligence operations in Afghanistan. Anderson's betrayal represented merely one node in a sophisticated conspiracy that had influenced strategic decisions for decades. The personal implications proved more challenging to integrate. Her father's resurrection after 16 years of presumed death. Her mother's previously unknown role as CIA operative. Makarov's psychological warfare suggesting deeper complexities within their family history. Each revelation reshaped her understanding of her own identity and professional development. After 40 minutes of careful movement through darkness, Sarah approached the designated rally coordinates. Using her tactical monocular, she conducted careful surveillance of the area before proceeding. No indication of hostile presence, no sign of William yet either. She established position in a defensible location with clear observation of approach vectors, then waited with professional patience. Minutes passed without contact. Sarah maintained tactical discipline, controlling breathing, minimizing movement, becoming part of the landscape as her father had taught her. After 17 minutes, movement registered on her peripheral vision. A figure approached from the western vector, moving with the disciplined pattern she recognized as her father's operational signature. She allowed him to approach within recognition distance before revealing her position with a preset signal pattern. William acknowledged with corresponding signal, then joined her position. Area secure, he confirmed quietly. No indication of pursuit elements. Extraction helicopter reports ready status at landing zone 2 kilometers north. They proceeded together toward the final extraction point, maintaining tactical spacing and security awareness despite the apparent absence of pursuit. Professional discipline required assuming potential surveillance until successful extraction confirmed operational completion. As they approached the landing, coordinates rotors became audible in the distance. The extraction helicopter approached with minimal illumination, using terrain following protocols to avoid detection by hostile observation posts. The pilot demonstrated professional skill, bringing the aircraft into a confined landing zone without standard approach procedures. They moved quickly toward the helicopter as it settled onto the rocky ground. The side door opened to reveal Lieutenant Colonel Harlow himself, rather than expected extraction personnel. His weathered features revealed both relief and urgency as he motioned them aboard. "Welcome back from the dead, William," he shouted over the rotor noise as they climbed into the aircraft. "Though your timing remains questionable as ever." William secured the intelligence package before responding. Extraction team status. 2 confirmed KIA. Remainder implementing secondary extraction protocol through Northern Vector. Harlow replied, his expression suggesting professional acceptance of operational cost. Anderson is in custody. 3 additional compromised assets identified at Firebase Echo, all contained. The helicopter lifted immediately after they secured positions, accelerating hard through the mountain pass before establishing standard flight pattern toward designated secure facility. Sarah maintained tactical awareness despite increasing confidence in successful extraction. Professional discipline required vigilance, until mission parameters officially concluded. The network data, Harlow inquired, gesturing toward the secured package. Complete, William confirmed. Entire organizational structure, financial networks, compromised assets throughout coalition forces. Everything needed to dismantle Makarov's operation entirely. And Makarov himself, alive. William acknowledged his expression, revealing complex assessment of this outcome. Facility security protocols prevented elimination opportunity without compromising primary objective. Harlow absorbed this information with professional calculation rather than disappointment. The network was always the priority target. Makarov can be addressed in subsequent operations. Sarah observed this exchange with increasing understanding of intelligence operational priorities, tactical objectives determined by strategic assessment rather than personal vendetta. The approach differed fundamentally from military priority structures, but achieved parallel outcomes through alternative methodology. As the helicopter established cruise altitude and heading, William finally turned his attention from operational requirements to personal implications. Sarah deserves complete briefing on historical context, he told Harlow. Catherine's operational role. Agency monitoring protocols for Morgan family activities. Everything. Harlow studied William for a moment before responding. 16 years maintaining operational security. Now you recommend full disclosure. Interesting evolution in your assessment parameters. She's earned it, William replied simply, both as an operator and as our daughter. The acknowledgement of familial relationship rather than merely operational connection represented significant shift in William's presentation. Professional detachment giving way to personal recognition after mission completion. The transition revealed complexity beneath his operational facade. Agreed, Harlow acknowledged. Though some elements remain classified beyond my authorization level. Then we'll address those elements through appropriate channels. William countered his tone, suggesting determination rather than acceptance of bureaucratic limitation. She deserves the complete picture. Her maintained professional composure while processing the implications of this exchange. Her father's commitment to transparency after decades of deception. The suggestion of family history beyond even current revelations. The potential reconstruction of personal identity through newly accessible information. The extraction team, she said, redirecting focus to immediate operational concerns. Confirm their status. Harlow accessed secure communications equipment, establishing connection with command elements coordinating the secondary extraction. After brief exchange, he provided update. 4 team members implementing extraction through Northern Passage, encountering resistance but maintaining operational progress. Extraction vehicle dispatched to alternate coordinates. The professional assessment acknowledged both ongoing tactical risk and operational progress. Sarah processed this information against her military experience, recognizing the calculated acceptance of personnel risk in pursuit of mission objectives. Standard intelligence operational parameters rather than military extraction priorities. As the helicopter continued toward secure facility, William finally addressed the personal implications directly. Sarah, he began, his tone shifting from operational authority to something more uncertain. What Makarov said about your mother was psychological warfare designed to disrupt tactical cohesion, she completed clinically. Standard interrogation methodology. William acknowledged this assessment with slight nod. Yes, but contained elements of truth deployed strategically for maximum impact. That's what makes effective manipulation. Catherine was CIA assigned initially to monitor Operation Cyclone activities, including my own. That much is accurate. And the rest? Sarah asked, maintaining professional demeanor despite personal investment in his response. Distortion of actual events, William replied. Catherine was never captured as Makarov suggested. She discovered evidence of Anderson's compromise and was preparing official report when the vehicle accident occurred. No accident, as you now understand. Sarah processed this clarification against her tactical understanding of intelligence operations. She was targeted specifically because she identified Anderson. Yes, William confirmed, though we didn't establish that connection until years later. Initial assessments suggested generalized targeting of CIA assets rather than specific counterintelligence operation. The reconstruction of historical events provided contextual framework for Sarah's understanding of her family history. Not merely collateral damage in Cold War operations, but targeted elimination to protect compromised intelligence networks. The personal tragedy embedded within larger strategic conflict. When this is finished, Sarah said finally, I want access to her operational files. Complete record of her CIA activities. William exchanged glance with Harlow, unspoken communication passing between experienced intelligence officers. Some elements remain classified, William acknowledged. But I'll ensure you receive everything available through appropriate channels. The helicopter banked slightly, adjusting course toward final approach to secure facility. Below, the Afghan landscape continued its ancient existence, indifferent to the human dramas played out across its surface. Generations of conflict, foreign interventions, strategic objectives pursued and abandoned. And within that vast tapestry of historical forces, the small but significant story of the Morgan family. Makarov said something else, Sarah noted, recalling their confrontation in the medical facility, about larger strategic objectives beyond weapons transfers and intelligence operations. The restoration of Russian territorial influence through managed instability. William's expression confirmed the significance of this observation. Yes, that represents the actual strategic threat we've been countering. Individual operations, compromised assets, intelligence networks all serve larger geopolitical objectives. The Cold War transformed rather than ended. And the data package we secured provides evidence of specific implementation methodology, William explained. Not merely criminal enterprise for profit, but coordinated state-level campaign utilizing proxy conflicts to achieve strategic objectives while maintaining deniability. The operational implications extended far beyond Afghanistan or individual compromised assets like Anderson. The intelligence they had secured represented strategic-level insight into evolving geopolitical methodologies that would inform American policy for decades. As the helicopter began descent toward the secure facility, Sarah recognized the mission's true significance extended far beyond personal vendettas or individual betrayals. The Morgan family tragedy represented merely one narrative thread within complex historical tapestry. Their operational success would impact strategic calculations far beyond Afghanistan's borders. Williams seemed to follow her analytical process, recognizing the professional assessment occurring beneath her composed exterior. "You're thinking like an intelligence officer now," he observed quietly. "I'm thinking like a Morgan," Sarah corrected. Apparently, that includes both military discipline and intelligence assessment. For the first time since their reunion, William smiled genuinely. The expression transformed his weathered features, revealing the father she remembered from childhood memories. "Catherine would be proud of that integration," he said simply. "She always believed effective operators required both tactical discipline and strategic understanding." The helicopter touched down on the secure facility landing pad. As rotors wound down, Harlow established communication with facility security, confirming their arrival and arranging secure transport for the intelligence package. professional protocols resuming after the emotional complexities of extraction operations. Before disembarking, William placed hand briefly on Sarah's arm, establishing personal rather than operational connection. "When the debriefing protocols conclude," he said quietly, "we have much to discuss about family history." Sarah nodded once, acknowledging both the professional requirements awaiting them and the personal revelations yet to be processed. "I look forward to it," she replied, maintaining composed exterior while accepting the emotional complexities that awaited resolution. As they exited the helicopter, Sarah observed the secure facility with professional assessment. The operation had achieved its primary objectives: Makarov's network exposed, compromised assets identified, strategic intelligence secured, her father restored from operational death to acknowledged existence. Yet, the mission's true completion remained future tense. Understanding her mother's role in intelligence operations, processing 16 years of deception maintained for operational security, integrating professional identity with newly revealed family history. For now, debriefing protocols demanded attention. Intelligence package required secure processing. Operational details needed documentation for historical record. The professional requirements provided structure, while emotional implications awaited proper context for resolution. Sarah Morgan, Marine Corps sniper and daughter of CIA operatives, followed her father and Harlow toward the facility's secure entrance. The Ghost of Cold Valley had completed its mission. The family ghosts would require further exorcism through truth and reconciliation. Both processes demanded professional discipline and personal courage, qualities she now understood inherited from both parents.